Welcome, I am Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. German Finance Minister Lars Klingbeil says the EU will need decisive measures if no fair deal is reached with the US to avert threatened tariffs. Klingbeil said the talks with Washington must be serious and solution-oriented. Gaza's civil defense says Israeli airstrikes killed 40 people over the day on Sunday, hitting a market and water distribution point, while ceasefire talks remain deadlocked. Delegations from Israel and Hamas have spent a week in Qatar trying to agree to a temporary truce to halt 21 months of conflict in Gaza. Macron proudly raises France's defence agenda as Russia looms near and US support wavers, say Alesi officials. He outlines plans to boost budget, mobilise youth and explore nuclear umbrella for Europe to ensure strategic autonomy. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has offered Moscow his unconditional support in the war in Ukraine, state media has reported after talks with Russia's Sergei Lavrov. Kim said Pyongyang backs all measures by Russia to tackle the root cause of the crisis, as Western officials claim North Korea has sent 11,000 troops to fight in Ukraine. Ukrainian intelligence agents killed members of a Russian FSB cell suspected of shooting an SBU colonel last week. The SBU says the operation aimed to arrest the agents believed to be behind the murder of Colonel Ivan Koronichov in Kiev on Thursday. President Trump has threatened to impose a 30% tariff on imports from Mexico and the European Union starting on August the 1st. Trump said negotiations failed to reach a deal, marking an escalation in a trade war that has angered US allies and rattled markets. China's embassy in New Delhi says the Dalai Lama's succession remains an internal affair and a key issue in straining relations with India. Ahead of India's foreign minister visiting China for the first time since 2020 border clashes, Beijing warned it must approve any future Dalai Lama successor. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says a political agreement has been reached to advance a free trade deal with Indonesia. She told reporters in Jakarta that the deal will open new markets and tap into untouched trade potential between the two sides. Now, our top story. United States President Donald Trump has imposed a 30% tariff on imports from Mexico and the European Union, starting on August the 1st. This comes weeks after negotiations with the major trading partners to reach a failed deal, and they were trying to reach a more comprehensive trade deal. Trump announced the new tariffs on the two of the US's biggest trade partners in separate letters posted to its Truth Social platform on Saturday. He said that they were due to what he called Mexico's role in undocumented migration and illicit drugs following into the US, as well as a trade imbalance with the European Union, respectively. Speaking on the latest tariff announcement, European Commission's von der Leyen has said that the EU has always been clear that it prefers a negotiated solution with the US, and it has always been remain the case. She has also said that the EU will be extending its suspension of the countermeasures to the US tariffs to early August. Let's listen in to the President of the European Commission.
The United States have sent us a letter with measures that would come into effect unless there is a negotiated solution. So we will therefore also extend the suspension of our countermeasures till early August. And at the same time, we will continue to prepare further countermeasures so we are fully prepared. Very important in this is always the second and the third element. The second element is to diversify our trade relationships. So this big and important political agreement on a free trade agreement with Indonesia is today a huge milestone forward and shows that we're looking for new open market. So we have, as you know, a two-track approach. That's very important. We have always been very clear that we prefer a negotiated solution. This remains the case, and we will use the time that we have now till the 1st of August. And on the second track, since the very beginning, we have worked and now are ready to respond with countermeasures. We've prepared for this, and we can respond with countermeasures if necessary. So this two-track approach pays off because we are prepared. On your question, as you know, we have prepared and agreed on a first list of countermeasures. We have developed a second potential list of countermeasures that is by now agreed to. And the ACI is created for extraordinary situations. We are not there yet. This is very important. This is now the time for negotiations, but this also shows we are prepared for all eventual scenarios.
Following this, reactions are pouring in. German Finance Minister Lars Klingbeil has said that the EU must be ready for decisive action over US tariff hikes, while saying that their hands remain outstretched, but they will not go along with everything. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron condemned Trump's threat to impose 30% tariffs on the European Union, calling on the bloc to resolutely defend European interests. He further called on the bloc to step up preparation of credible countermeasures by mobilising all instruments at its disposal if the two sides fail to reach an agreement by August the 1st. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has also called the tariffs unjustified. We're now joined by our guest, Martin Saar-Arias. He's a foreign affairs expert and he joins us live from Ecuador. Martin, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. Martin, how significant are these tariffs? We've seen now an increase, especially in the European Union's tariff rate, originally 20%, now it's up at 30%. To what extent do you think these stated reasons that Donald Trump is given, those being undocumented migration, illicit drugs and trade imbalances, justify this tariff move under international trade norms?
I think right now we're watching a situation where the US and the European Union are having a tense relationship because we're having two governments that are very nationalistic and they're not going to give up on their countries' and regions' interests. Trump, as we have seen before, he's not willing to give up on his strategy for the interest of the United States. However, these tariffs are also hurting the United States economy because the US is facing counter tariffs from the countries that they've been applying this tension. And the European Union right now is taking another step, another policy. They're not the European Union from before with other type of governments that were very supportive and followed the rules and the status quo of the United States. Right now we're seeing a shift in the geopolitical status of new governments that are more right-wing, nationalistic, and more they have excepticism from a globalization. Right now, the German government is more focused on strengthening the power of the European Union. As the Minister Klingbeil said, they are wanting to apply negotiations and diplomacy with the US, but if this fails, they will have no other option to counter tariff the US and to find another partner for this trade. And also this transatlantic trade agreement is in danger.
Yes, Martin, thank you very much. You are staying with us, I believe, to discuss further updates. We now move over to the Middle East, where Israeli airstrikes on Sunday killed more than 40 Palestinians in Gaza, including 8 children, at a water distribution point, according to Gaza's Civil Defense Agency. The attacks come as ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas in Doha remain stalled. Overnight strikes hit Gaza City, the Nuseirat refugee camp and the coastal area of Al-Bawasi, killing at least 52 people, according to the reports. 7 UN agencies warn that a critical fuel shortage is threatening hospitals and aid operations. Let's listen in to some of the survivors.
قمنا على صوت انفجارين كبار تفاجأنا بأنه جارنا أبو جهاد العربيد هو وأولاده في دارهم تحت الردم. قصف الاحتلال قصف الدار بصاروخين، والصاروخين أدت إلى استشهاد ما يقارب 10 تنفار في الدار.
رسالة للعالم وقفوا الحرب، يعني بكفي، يعني أكثر من هيك إيش تم؟ إحنا ناس مدنيين، يعني بنشوفوا في ناس مدنيين، إيش تم؟ ما تم لنا شيء. فلازم هذه الحرب إنها توقف وبأسرع وقت ممكن.
Ceasefire talks for a 60-day truce remain in deadlock, with Israel insisting on keeping troops in Gaza, while Hamas demands a full withdrawal. Meanwhile, in the West Bank, Palestinians bid farewell to Saif al-Din Kamil Abdul Karim Musalat. His family and Palestinian officials say he was beaten to death during an Israeli settler attack in Sinjil, north of Ramallah. The Israeli military says clashes broke out after rocks were thrown at Israeli civilians and that the incident is now under review. We're once again joined by Martin Saar-Arias, who's a foreign affairs expert. He joins us live from Ecuador once again. Martin, there was finally some optimism here in regards to a ceasefire deal, seemingly anyway. However, now we get the update that talks seem to have stalled in the Qatari capital. What are your thoughts?
Are we moving on?
What are your thoughts on this? Yes, Martin, if you can hear me correctly, we're discussing the...
Where did they disappear?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was wondering if I could get your thoughts on why the ceasefire talks in Doha are deadlocked despite this raising civilian death toll. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, we move on. Thank you very much, Martin. I believe we have some technical issues there. We now move over to Europe, where the Security Service of Ukraine, or SBU, has announced the elimination of 2 Russian agents allegedly responsible for the killing of its officers. Colonel Ivan Voronich in Kiev earlier this week. The SBU claims the operation was carried out on orders from Russia's Federal Security Service, or FSB. The agents, a man and a woman, reportedly tracked Colonel Voronovich's movements before ambushing him on July the 10th. The investigation suggests that the killers received a firearm and suppressor from a secret stash. They fired multiple shots at the officer before fleeing the scene. In a special operation conducted this morning, the SBU tracked down and neutralized the suspects in Kiev Oblast. SBU head Lieutenant General Vasyl Maluk confirmed the deaths of the agents during a shootout and emphasized that the only prospect for Russia's agents in Ukraine is death. Earlier this year, Ukrainian forces claimed to have prevented 85% of similar Russian attacks within their territory. We're now joined by Professor Veselin Popovsky, who's the Professor and Vice Dean of Jindal Law School, located in South Africa, to discuss this in further detail. Professor Popovsky, thank you for joining us. What are your thoughts on this operation? What does it show about Kiev's intelligence service and the fact that they can pull off operations like this?
Yes, it shows the rapid reaction of the intelligence services of Ukraine. Only 70 hours after the murder of Ivan Voronich, they identify who are the agents who killed them, and they obviously neutralized them very quickly and very professionally. And also as you said, the announcement that that's what will happen with any Russian agent, effectively assassins who are still somewhere in Ukraine, it will be the same fate. It also kind of links to other similar assassinations which Ukrainian agents also exercise on the Russian senior military commanders and senior intelligence officers in Moscow and elsewhere in Russia, which again suggests that Ukrainian intelligence is very professional, very well equipped, trained to undertake such measures against Russian attacks on Ukrainian military or senior commanders or any Ukrainian citizens for that matter. Yeah, well exercised operation. That's the final analysis here, in my opinion.
Yes, indeed. And from an international law perspective, Dr. Popovsky, how do you convert killings and cross-border sabotage, and how do these fit into the laws of war, or espionage norms for that matter?
Yes, we're in a situation of war where the laws of armed conflict apply, not the normal, human rights law, which is in peaceful situations. Because Russia and Ukraine are in war, they're in armed conflict, the laws of armed conflict allows the assassination of military targets of the enemy. Effectively, any Russian soldier, it doesn't need to be a general, it could be any Russian military man or woman, would be a legitimate target for the Ukrainian forces. So for that matter, in fact, even Russians didn't question that when somebody senior, and there are several senior generals who were assassinated by the Ukrainians, and by the way, vice versa, if the Ukrainian senior military commander is killed by the Russian army in time of armed conflict, that's considered to be a legitimate target. No problem with the international humanitarian law, only if the person is really a military person. It cannot be a civilian, even a civilian official, for example, minister or governor or mayor. These are considered to be civilians and not military commanders.
Thank you very much for your insight on that, Professor Popovsky. You are staying with us to discuss more updates from the region. Russia has claimed control of 2 villages in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region as its offensive advances, according to the Kremlin. And on Sunday, Russia's defense ministry reported the capture of the village of Myrne, known by its Soviet-era name, Karl Marx, located near the administrative border between Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk. Myrne's capture has been a significant gain for Moscow's forces, which are now reportedly moving deeper into Ukrainian territory. Additionally, Russia's military confirmed its takeover of Mykolaivka, another village in the Donetsk region. This development marks a continuation of the 3-year-long conflict, with Russian forces intensifying their operations this summer, despite failed negotiations for a ceasefire between the US, Ukraine and Moscow. Now we're once again joined by Professor Veselin Popovsky. What is your view, Professor Popovsky, about how Russia seems to be developing on the battlefield? We are getting continuous updates of them capturing various villages, various small territories. What are your thoughts on Russia's military capabilities and the current territory that they are gaining at the moment?
I would say these are not significant advances. These are small villages and certainly without much strategic change of the balance. For me, like, the big test will be whether the Russian army this summer will be able to capture Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk is a big hub of transport routes, and if Russia can do that, that will probably prolong the war. But they are trying to do this already for 1 year. It's from last year, from 2024 summer, already 11 and a half months, Russia is trying to capture Pokrovsk, that hub. So see how slowly Russia goes here. And for me, 1 or 2 villages this week, and they maybe next week they will lose 1 or 2 villages elsewhere. Doesn't really make any difference on the battlefield. Generally, yes, there was an advance in the summer, where is the best time for any advance. Russians are trying hard. They are wasting a lot of soldiers, by the way, for those advances. Every day in the last months, Russia is between 900 and 1,000 soldiers dead in those advances. So if they capture these small villages, it also means a lot of human lives lost, the Russian soldiers' lives lost. And it doesn't really justify that advance if we take the enormous Russian losses in terms of armed forces. But they are trying to show that they are still there, they are still strong, they can achieve the goals of the special military operations. And with that speed of achievement, some suggestions go like they need 70 years to get all of Ukraine, or even several years to get all of the 4 regions. They are nowhere near anywhere in Zaporozhye, in Kherson region. Have advances only in Donetsk, and these are very minimal, as I say. So nothing to worry about here. These are reports. They are trying to please Putin with some good news in Kremlin. They will report another 2 villages next week. But when they lose those same 2 villages, they never report that to Putin. That's why we hear what Russians advances. But otherwise, if they lose villages, that's Ukrainians are usually not reporting everything. They are very kind of professional on that method. They are not trying to please Zelensky with such little changes on the battlefield.
Professor Popovsky, obviously we do see some rhetoric being bandied about. We've just seen, in fact, today the Hungarian Prime Minister make a statement that Ukraine has lost this war already, is what he said today. Given your analysis just there, is that an accurate way to put this, or when it comes down to movements on the battlefield?
I would call it ridiculous way to put it. Ukraine fight for 3.5 years, and Russia couldn't even get closer to their. Well, remember the first goal Russia put is to change the regime in Kiev and to have the entire Ukraine under its control. They couldn't even get control to the 4 regions they announced they are Russians in their change of the constitution. So Russia is minimizing its own military goals here, and they cannot achieve even those minimal military goals. So absolutely incorrect. Ukraine is there, getting stronger and stronger with the European Union support, with the NATO support, with the rest of the world support. Russia gets its final attempts to achieve anything. So the good news for Putin is only that Donald Trump was elected as US president and somehow prolonged the war, the kind of the confidence of Putin. But again, there is one outcome here. There is no way Ukraine will lose this war.
Professor Popovsky, thank you very much. You are staying with us to discuss further developments. The United States president has said that the US is selling weapons to its NATO allies in Europe so that they can provide them to Ukraine as it struggles to fend off a recent escalation in Russia's drone and missile attacks. This comes after Russia's recent record, one of the largest strikes on Ukraine. Speaking on Friday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that some of the US-made weapons that Ukraine is seeking are deployed with NATO allies in Europe. Those weapons could be transferred to Ukraine, with European countries buying replacements from the United States. However, details of this are still being worked out on Trump's plan. The Trump administration has gone back and forth about providing more vital military aid to Ukraine more than 3 years into Russia's invasion. We're once again joined by Professor Popovsky. Professor, what does President Trump's plan here signify? Does it say what does it say about Washington's commitment in this conflict? Has he changed his mind again?
Obviously, yes. Donald Trump is changing his mind every week. One time he's supporting Putin, the next time he's supporting Ukraine. It's kind of a game which doesn't really make much of a interest anymore to anybody. Obviously, good news that some more support for Ukraine will be coming from the United States. This is the right direction to go, and it's certainly helpful to have U.S. support for Ukraine. Hopefully, it will be continuous and sustainable and not just another change of mind. As I said previously, Donald Trump is playing this game of kind of trying to zigzag between Russia and Ukraine here and somehow to get the benefit of any possible ceasefire, but that's not coming. The problem is exactly that zigzag that Donald Trump is playing, is dancing, is not producing much of ceasefire, which is his apparently ultimate goal is to have some ceasefire. Ceasefire will only happen through full support of Ukraine and full sanctions on Russia. Otherwise, Putin will be difficult to be defeated. And for that matter, yes, good news, but hopefully it will sustain. It will be continued over time. Further support for Ukraine, sanctions on Russia, that's the way to go.
Yes, Professor Popovsky, thank you for joining us. You are staying with us once again for further updates. North Korea has issued a warning stating it is ready to take military action against any security threats posed by the United States, Japan and South Korea following a recent joint air drill that involved a US strategic bomber. The warning comes as North Korea continues to express its intense opposition to what it views as intrusions in the region. This escalates tensions after a B-52 bomber flight near South Korea supported by fighter jets from the Allies, which North Korea interprets as a threat. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who is in North Korea for strategic talks, has reaffirmed the close military partnership between the two countries, with Kim Jong-un expressing unconditional support for Russia's actions in the Ukraine crisis. We're once again joined by Professor Popovsky. How would you analyse North Korea's and Russia's relationship here? Unconditional support was the phrase used today by Kim Jong-un to Russia's top diplomat. How do we analyse this relationship, and what does Russia want out of North Korea, and what does North Korea want out of Russia here?
Yes, nothing surprising. They have been allies for a long time, Russia and North Korea. As we know, North Korea supply even soldiers to the Russian war with Ukraine. Certainly military support, weaponry, and so on. So it's a continuation of a long relationship, a friendship even between North Korea and Russia. But that's where things end. The only country which so fully support Russia in this war with Ukraine is basically North Korea. Even China, even Iran don't do that. So that's the only remaining country in the world where Lavrov can go and be treated as a friend. It is Pyongyang in North Korea. That's why he's so happy always to go there and to hug with the North Korean partners and to talk about the endless friendship and all of that. This is the friend of Russia in the world, only one, and called North Korea. Yes, they will supply some more weapons, maybe some more soldiers, but that's it. Otherwise, Ukraine is supported by 150 other countries in the world, where we see who is supporting Russia in this war. Only one, only North Korea. Not any news anymore for that. The dictators love each other, those who want to stay in power forever. They love each other. And, unfortunately, yes, there are several such dictators in the world, and they remain in a kind of a friendship and supporting each other. But the rest of the world, as I said, democratic countries, countries that respect rule of law, respect human rights, obviously are much more united and much more stronger than those remaining few dictators.
Professor Popovsky, how does this vocal support for Russia's actions in Ukraine fit into North Korea's broader foreign policy?
Yes, obviously negatively. Nobody else is also a friend of North Korea, by the way, apart from Russia. And the countries in the region, Japan and South Korea and United States and everybody else, obviously will keep North Korea isolated, under sanctions, under pressure, including, for that matter, to develop weapons of mass destruction, including nuclear weapons. So North Korea remains where it is, fully isolated, under sanctions, with no other friend apart from Vladimir Putin in Moscow, to a certain extent, China is also considered to be a dialogue with North Korea. Dependent on China, North Korea has very little options but to simply continue what they have been doing so far.
Professor Popovsky, what do you think of the fact, how might the US, South Korea and Japan, all allies, adjust their posture or messaging to manage the risk of a possible North Korean retaliation?
So far, they were doing quite well. That format you mentioned, United States, Japan, and South Korea, using also connections to China. So we don't see much of a aggressive behavior on behalf of North Korea over the last year, at least. There used to be missiles, some testing long-range missiles over Japan. But those were rare, and those were more like in the past. In other words, in my contacts in Japan, I usually ask these questions: how much Japanese are worried about the North Korean possible attack? And strategically, they rely on United States, South Korea as a kind of a firm alliance against possible North Korean aggression. And for that matter, North Koreans also realize that they have no way to even gain closer to the military might of United States. So for that matter, it's simply a game. They are trying to get some funding from releasing some information, some weapons. So this, again, is a long game. Sometimes North Koreans cooperate by saying that they will not develop this or that facility and weaponry in exchange for some assistance, financial assistance.
Yes, Professor Veselin Popovsky, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. Always a pleasure to have you on. We now move over to the United States for our next story, where SpaceX is investing a staggering $2 billion in Elon Musk's artificial intelligence startup, XAI, as part of a $5 billion equity round. This deepens the collaboration between Musk's ventures, positioning XAI to compete against industry leaders like OpenAI. The merger between XAI and X has created a combined company valued at $113 billion. The Grok chatbot, which powers Starlink support, is also expected to play a key role in future innovations, including Tesla's Optimus robots. Despite some controversy surrounding Grok's responses, Musk remains confident in its potential as the smartest AI in the world. We're now joined by Somraj Bhattacharjee, and he's an AI expert and a market strategist. Thank you very much for joining us, Somraj. Why is SpaceX investing this substantial amount, $2 billion, into XAI, and how does SpaceX's core business, how does this benefit SpaceX's core business in the long run?
Yes, so first of all, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Goes on to consolidate the presence of Tesla, SpaceX, and XAI. So what's going to happen is in the future, shared capabilities, AI capabilities are going to lead the industry norms. So far, whatever we've seen is that companies like ChatGPT, like SpaceX, like Amazon Blue, they operate individually and they depend on AI capabilities for external parties. But when SpaceX invests in AI tech, in a way, it's the same, it's a sister company for them because it's part of the Tesla group, the Musk group. But what's going to happen is data sharing and shared capability is going to go up immensely. And this will be very, very impactful in the long run for cost optimization. Because right now, people have to pay a lot for databases, for information, for knowledge bases. But in the next 5 to 10 years down the line, you will see that companies like SpaceX are going to consolidate these databases and draw immense monetary gains from this. So this is what I think is the idea behind it, the thought behind why they are doing this. They're not doing it for immediate gains, but this is more like a long-term strategic vision that I believe Elon Musk has.
Somraj, Elon Musk wants this to be, thinks it could be the smartest AI in the world. How credible do you think this could be, especially stacking up against giants like OpenAI and Google Gemini?
We all know by now that AI doesn't start learning from day one. AI takes time to learn about any large language model. ChatGPT is where it is today because it has given a significant time, at least 4 years' time, for its LLMs to learn about the iterations people are searching for. So the claim that Grok AI will become the best, AI engine in the world in such a short duration of time seems a bit vague to me right now, because right now the database on which they're operating is very thin. But given the time that they may have been investing for, 5 years, as I just said, I strongly feel that they can become one of the better ones in the market. But to claim that they are the best right now, I think this is nothing more than a typical Elon Musk marketing pitch that he's making, which he's very good at.
Yes, indeed. Somraj, could combining AI chatbots with Starlink or Tesla create new security or safety concerns for the people, for the humans using this?
The risk of data security always remains, irrespective of whether you consolidate or not. What will happen is dependency on external AI partners will reduce, which may lead to a monopoly in the hands of Elon Musk. That will be very ethically a questionable point, because if one person has all the access to data of, let's say, half the population of the world, that would be a major risk in the coming days. Immediately, the database they're operating on would be very thin, but until and unless they can create a strong AI ecosystem where the integration, the software, and the database, all three are within the control of the same person, that is a very scary scenario. So one hopes that the norms, the data protection norms in the US are strong enough to govern this. One hopes that the government of the USA takes into account that one person should not have all the information. But again, we have seen in the past also that the likes of Amazon and Microsoft, they do tend to monopolize data, and that does lead to tremendous security risks. But as of now, no, there is no major security risk. But in the coming days, there may be one. So the agencies, the governments need to be extremely careful about the norms, the regulations, the guidelines, which will be there to monitor and govern Grok AI.
Yes, and finally, given the controversies around Grok's responses so far, what risks does Musk take in scaling this AI ecosystem across multiple companies, now, like he is now doing?
Yes, so recently, which you correctly said, there were certain racist and anti-Semitic content which were put out by Grok AI some days back. And that led to a lot of negative publicity and PR for the company. I feel if some other CEO would have been there, he would not have taken this risk so inadvertently. He would have thought it through. But knowing how Elon Musk operates, he may take the plunge and think of the risks later, because he is in a hurry to consolidate Grok AI against ChatGPT. Elon Musk's larger vision is to have an engine, an LLM engine, which competes at par with ChatGPT and Gemini. Grok AI does not have the scale of operations which these two have right now. So the risks to the brand are immense. Until unless you take care of these risks, you will not be able to have a sustainable brand. But I don't see the company backing out now, because $2 billion USD investment is huge. It's nearly half what SpaceX initially thought of. So this amount of investment going into a brand, they will take the plunge and think of the risks later.
Somraj Bhattacharjee, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Some interesting stuff there. We now move over to the Indo-Pacific, where French President Emmanuel Macron has announced what he called a historic agreement with the leaders from New Caledonia, declaring the French overseas territory as a new state of New Caledonia as part of a wider autonomy deal, but stopping short of granting full independence. The 13-page accord was reached after 10 days of negotiations at the LC Paris. in Paris between the French government and the representatives on both sides of the territory's independent debate. Let's take a listen in to what Macron had to say.
La formule qui en résulte, ça a été rappelé par le ministre d'État, est une innovation complète à la hauteur de la complexité de votre territoire. Elle est respectueuse des Calédoniens, de ceux d'hier, d'aujourd'hui, de demain, et respectueuse de la République. Et cette formule est celle d'un État de la Nouvelle-Calédonie au sein de l'ensemble national, avec cette loi fondamentale inscrite dans la Constitution. Et elle concilie l'aspiration à l'autodétermination et le lien avec la France d'une manière inédite. Nous sommes donc à l'aboutissement d'un processus, celui entamé il y a presque 40 ans lors des accords de Matignon et de Nouméa. Et je vous le dis, le chemin que vous avez réussi à construire collectivement est inédit et il force le respect.
Under the New Deal, New Caledonia would remain part of the French Republic but gained expanded powers. This includes the right to establish its own nationality alongside French citizenship and increased authority over foreign policy. The agreement also opens the door for further referendums that could gradually transfer powers over defence, security, justice and currency to New Caledonian control. The accord also includes an economic recovery plan focused on revitalising the territory's nickel-dependent economy. The accord still needs approval in New Caledonia and may face a new vote by New Caledonians in February. Now we stay in the diplomatic world. Among the 589 recipients of France's prestigious Legion of Honour were Gisèle Pellico and Pharrell Williams. Pellico became an icon after publicly testifying about the mass rape she endured over a decade, leading to significant changes in France's rape laws. Williams was honoured for his impact in both music and fashion, including his role as Louis Vuitton's men's creative director. He also recognised where actress Leah Drucker, singer Sylvie Vartan and Holocaust survivor Yvette Levy, alongside with other notable figures from politics, law and academia. We now move back to the Middle East, where Syria is battling raging wildfires for a 10th consecutive day in the northern countryside of Latakia, with several defence and firefighting teams working around the clock to bring the blazes under control. Crews from Syria, Turkey, Jordan and Qatar are actively engaged on the ground in hotspots such as Qasab, Jabal al-Nasir and the forests of Frun-Luk and Al-Atria. Iraqi teams also arrived on Saturday and are expected to join operations. Latakia's Civil Defence Director Abdul Kafi Kiyal said experts are focused on areas like Burj al-Zahi and Al-Atria and confirmed that firefighting missions are ongoing until the flames are fully extinguished. He praised the regional cooperation in confronting the environmental crisis, highlighting the support from Jordan, Turkey, Iraq, Lebanon and Qatar in bolstering Syria's response. Crews continue battling fires that have scorched parts of the Latakia province. 2 people are missing in Catalonia after torrential rains battered much of the region on Saturday. According to officials, 10 centimetres of rain fell in a few hours near Barcelona, causing severe flooding and disrupting travel. Firefighters are actively searching for 2 individuals who were reportedly swept away by rivers in Cubelles, a town located about 50 kilometres from the city. In response to the weather conditions, Renfe, Spain's main train operator, suspended all train services across Catalonia for several hours. Services have since resumed, but the storm left its mark. A hospital in Barcelona was flooded, forcing it to turn away patients, and several roads were blocked due to the rising waters. Other regions in the north of Spain, including Aragon, also experienced heavy rainfall and disruption. Now we finish our bulletin in the world of sport. Tom Clarkson has been called up by the British and Irish Lions as additional front row coverhead of the first test against Australia, the team confirmed. Hooker Jamie George was also brought in as a replacement for Luke Cowan-Dickey, while centre Gary Ringrose was ruled out due to concussion. Clarkson's addition brings the total number of Leinster players in the squad to 14. Sporting President Frederico Vandaras has stated that striker Victor Gyökeres will face a fine and be required to apologise to his teammates for missing the start of pre-season training. Amid speculation about a possible transfer, the 27-year-old Sweden forward was expected to join the team's camp on the Algarve on July the 12th after being given an extended break. Fred Van Vliet was elected president of the National Basketball Players Association by his fellow NBA players. His four-star team starts immediately. The NBPA handles collective bargaining, player grievances and career development. Among other responsibilities, Van Vliet, who founded the Van Vliet Foundation in 2016, succeeds CJ McCollum, who served as president since 2021. McCollum will now serve in an advisory capacity. Van Vliet's career includes playing for the Toronto Raptors and Houston Rockets, where he became an NBA champion, All-Star and the highest paid undrafted player. In his 51st career start, Garrett Crockett achieved two milestones, his first complete game and his first shutout. That was all the Boston Red Sox needed to secure a 1-0 victory over the Tampa Bay Rays on Saturday. Crochet flew through over 100 pitches, gave up only 3 hits and struck out 9 batters without issuing a walk, guiding the Red Sox to their 9th consecutive win. This also marks his 9th straight game with at least 7 strikeouts. Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz are set to face off for the Wimbledon Championship just 5 weeks after their thrilling French Open final. Sunday's centre court showdown between number 1 ranked Sinner and number 2 ranked Alcaraz is the first time since 2008 since the same two players have contested both the Roland Garros and Wimbledon title matches in the same year. Following Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal's clashes in 2006, 2007 and 2008. Well, that's all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you.